It's been so long since I felt your skin. It's been so long since I listened in to one of your shells and the song of your sea. Princess of the ocean, won't you come with me? Take my hand and come with me, darling, down to the shoreline.
Hello and welcome to the Nature Garden Podcast with me, Carl Steinson, and the weekending show team from Lionheart Radio. It's a chance to take a wander down the garden path and country lane with the birds and the bees and the flowers and trees, and an opportunity to hear stories from the past and present. In this episode, Tom's here with some colourful cures for seasonal blues. Steve Lowe is out and about with the National Trust at wonderful Wallington. Tom Cadwallander is continuing his autumn diary and celebrating the champion of murmurations, the spectacular starling. And did you know the world's biggest ever spiderweb was found in England? Stay tuned for more amazing tales from the spidery web of life with BugLife. And we've got more great top tips from Tom and some jobs for the week, all coming up on the Nature Garden Podcast.
Take my hand and come with me, darling, down to the shoreline.
It's getting colder, and the days are shorter and shorter as we go through November. Evening seems to come so quick, and the garden may well be starting to look a little bit bleak and forlorn. That's okay, but it doesn't have to be quite like that. Tom Pattinson's here with some colourful plant ideas to get us through autumn into winter.
Our gardens have entered a different phase quite recently. The leaves have gone, those strong autumnal winds leading into winter, cold. They've taken all the leaves off. We can see at a glance what's happening in the centre of deciduous trees and shrubs. See the nests that have been there all year, which we suspected, but didn't like to go nearby. And the garden possibly looks a little bit desolate, or it could be. And this is something that always surprises me in gardens that I see in summer, bursting with bloom, reasonable sized gardens, lots of bloom there, and people are proud of them. Yet quite a few people, when it gets to autumn going into winter, they seem to give up the ghost and there's absolutely bare ground there. No shrubs, no colour. Now, shrubs are useful at the best of times because, as far as I'm concerned, they add structure and form to the garden, different forms, evergreen and deciduous, a mixture of them, but they're essential to the birds. They have to have a place of refuge if there's a predator around, like a sparrowhawk, which hedgehops up and down our lane and swoops down over the lawn area and stops on the hedge, one of the hedges, and looks around quickly. Have I missed anything? They've got to have protection from that. They've got to have a nesting site, a roosting site, and also a place where food can be. In those shrubs, within those shrubs, there are different types of invertebrates which make up their food for the insectivores, etc. And of course they produce fruits for the fruit-eating birds. We accommodate them throughout the year, these birds, and they repay us by entertaining us. It's just a joy to watch them any time of the year. And of course the bird feeding stations are there. They can pop out to that in the open, then back into the safety of, say, an evergreen shrub. So why do people who have so many plants around during the summer and colour, why suffer winter with just a blank garden or one or two evergreens maybe? I go for colour. And I wanted to give you an indication of some of the plants that you could add. I'm not saying they're cheap as chips, they're not. Some are expensive, some you can propagate yourselves. But these plants put a smile on my face throughout winter when I do my daily walk around the garden, wrapped up well against the cold and the wind. And top of my list is a type of conifer. It's quite a mouthful, it's Chamaecyparis, Piscifera, Filifera, aurea. That's a golden conifer with golden leaves. Chamaecyparis means simply false cypress. Piscifera means pea-bearing. In other words, the capsules of seed come in a pea form, small peas on the foliage when the seeds have formed. Filifera means thread-like. And that just best describes these dangling leaves of golden threads. And when the breeze comes to it, oh my goodness, it just tremors in the breeze. And it's as tough as old boots. A beautiful plant to have around. But of course, that's a little bit more expensive to buy initially. But you've got it for a lifetime, just like a good fruit tree. You've got it for a lifetime if you look after it. That's one. But there's so many other raised from hardwood stem cuttings at this time of year, or softwood stem cuttings from June, July into August. And you probably could borrow one, or if you see a friend who has one, get a cutting at the appropriate time, ask the friend, swap it for something else and root it. Try the golden euonymus. Euonymus, emerald and gold. It's common as anything, but it just comes into its own at this time of the year, the golden green variegated leaves. There's Eleagnus maculata with the golden green mixture again of leaves. There's a Lonicera nitida. There's a green hedging plant, fairly common, with small green leaves. But this one is a beauty. It's got golden leaves. It's Lonicera nitida, Baggerson's gold. And of course there's a golden variegated holly, and so it goes on. These are a few of the plants that put a smile on my face throughout the winter. And of course they're hardy perennials. There's some silver variegated plants there too. Viburnum tinus, the silver variegate, silver and green leaves. That's the winter viburnum, which has no fragrance, white flowers, but it's an evergreen. Euonymus emerald gaiety has silver and green leaves. And there's beauty, Pittosporum garnettii. Pittosporum in the green form has generally been used in bouquets in the past, flower bouquets, but this is garnettii, a special one with the silver and green. And of course then there's a silver variegated holly. And so it goes on. These are just some of the plants you can be planting right now, because this is nature's planting time. If there's no frost around, get them into the soil and enjoy them. Even one, a token plant to start you off. And you've got something bright to look at and make you smile in the depths of winter.
Like many of us at this time, Tom Cadwallander from the British Trust for Ornithology has been watching the skies and looking in awe at the afternoon into evening gatherings of starlings. This chirpy, sociable bird has been treating us to some amazing aerial displays on Holy Island, Northumberland, and here's Tom Cadwallander to tell us more about the spectacular starling.
For me, Cole, the starling is one of the most underrated birds that we've come across, and you see them, they look absolutely fantastic. And just now, the young birds, the birds which were hatched this year, are just attaining their full adult plumage, which is lovely. The body is kind of all dark, or when the light catches it, it has this metallic green, purpley, blue sort of sheen to it, depending on which way the light hits it. And overlaying that, we have this series of silvery spots right across the body, and these just act as little beacons, and it's just a lovely sort of looking bird. But there are two other species of starlings in Europe. The rose-coloured starling, which has a pink body and a black head, and that breeds around the Mediterranean and is a rare visitor to the UK. And indeed, we've had a couple of them this year in Northumberland. But there is another member of the family, and that's the spotless starling. And as the name suggests, it hasn't got any spots, but it has the same metallic sheen to the body. And the spotless starling breeds right across the Mediterranean, right through to the Eastern Med. And it's an extremely rare bird in the northern parts of Europe, but they're readily seen around the Mediterranean. And they look very, very good as well. But the starling is a member of the myna family. We've kind of all recognised what a myna is. They are the real chatty ones you hear and see about, and they're Asian species. And there's about sort of 20 other different species of myna, and they're very gregarious, and we see them in quite large flocks. But when you get to Africa, there is about 80 or 90 different species of starlings. Some of them are absolutely superb. In fact, there's one of them called the superb starling, and there's another one called the splendid starling. And these birds are just so colourful, you just wouldn't believe it. They're absolutely fantastic. But the European starling, or the common starling as we sometimes call it, breeds right across Europe and in the UK, and it's a partial migrant, as it's known. So some parts of the population will leave areas, but others will not, if that makes any sort of sense. So when it comes to the autumn, the UK population is supplemented by tens of thousands, in fact, indeed millions of starlings coming out of Europe, particularly Northern Europe, and they'll gather up in huge, huge flocks. In recent years, the population hasn't really been doing very well. In fact, it's in a bit of a decline, and it's quite a concern for a lot of us ornithologists, and we're a bit worried about it. But tempering that with the idea that the population has been known to go up and down in Northern Europe. So we have seen declines before, and we have seen recovery before. So hopefully we might be sort of coming towards the end of that. But anyway, we're seeing these the UK population supplemented by the European one, European birds, and they gather up. As I mentioned earlier, they are quite gregarious, and they'll gather up into flocks. You often see them feeding in fields in flocks of 50, 60 or 70 or whatever, and they're feeding on grubs and invertebrates and other things like that. So they're beavering away. But what really catches our eye, and that really sort of sends them sort of great messages out, is what is known as a murmuration. And that is the great gathering they have every evening before they go off to roost. And all these flocks that have been scattered across the fields and the hedgerows and wherever are gathering together, and they're having a communal roost. And these murmurations can sort of go up to sort of 1,000, 2,000, 100,000. In fact, a couple of years ago, there was a murmuration counted at 2 million birds by Gretna Green on the west coast. I don't know how they counted 2 million, mind, because it's quite difficult. But anyway, that must have been a guesstimation. But it's quite spectacular. The great swirls of birds that is moving back and forward, and yet there's no collisions. By the way, there's just absolutely no collisions, and it's just incredible. You see them; they're like clouds. They're like clouds of smoke, and or swarming insects or something like that, but they're amazing. And they'll just all of a sudden they'll twist and they'll turn and they'll go up and they'll come down. And of course, all these birds are attractive to birds of prey. And there's always one or two birds of prey, sparrowhawks, for example, in attendance on these big flocks. And currently there is a big murmuration to be seen on Holy Island at the Lowe, and the birds are roosting in the reeds there, and they'll gather up and they chat away. They're so noisy, you wouldn't believe how noisy. Also, there's a big murmuration at East Chevington on Druridge Bay, the Northumberland Wildlife Trust reserve there, and there's big numbers going in there currently. And these birds are just absolutely wonderful, and the likelihood is that they'll stay most of the winter as well. And oh man, what a spectacle! Wildlife at its very, very best, which it's unbelievable. I think they're fantastic and underrated, as I said before. And get a look at them. It's quite interesting when you think about how their name has come around. Starling, actually, it's an extended version of the star. The Old English name for them is the star. And when you look at them, they've got they're about sort of 5.5 to 6 inches long, and the wingspan is about the same. But the wing shape is like triangle, so that it's wider at the body and pointed at the tip. So we have triangles as wings, and the head's the similar shape, and as is the tail. So we have these 4 points, and they look kind of superficially like a star, and that's how the name has become, how the name was derived. And quite an amazing sort of thought, isn't it? So from a star, the little star, to the starling. It's one of nature's wonders. We should appreciate them for what they are. They're fantastic.
Tom's not one to swear, at least not on the Weekending Show and Nature Garden podcast. And if you're a regular listener, you'll know just what we mean when we start to talk about the gardening F word, F-R-O-S-T to be precise, frost. Tom's keeping a canny eye on things in the garden.
If you're lucky enough to have a garden and you're familiar with the problems associated with strong winds and plants, you'll also realise that the other thing we have to concern ourselves about is frost. Up to the present time, we've had 1 or 2 mild frost overnight. On 2 or 3 occasions, the lawn at the front and back of the house, and mine, has been white, but it's quickly gone. In the greenhouse, it's been down to 0. It's been down to -1 on 1 occasion. But as the winter progresses, then it becomes much more serious. For this reason, I started, about 3 weeks ago, what I call my salvage operation. That is, looking around the garden at the borders and any plants that I feel have a question mark hanging over their hardiness. I either bring them in if I can, start bringing them in. I've been propagating just as a double precaution, taking 1 or 2 stem cuttings from fuchsias that are not quite hardy fuchsias, couldn't stay outdoors, and from penstemons, that sort of thing. And gradually I've been bringing in 1 or 2 pelargoniums, that's the geraniums, and 1 or 2 fuchsia plants. They stand in pots. I prune them back so they don't take up too much space, and just stand them there with no water at all, because there's moist atmosphere in the cold greenhouse, and they'll survive winter in there. Other things I'm looking at out there are anything in pots. If there's anything in pots, I can get them in straight away. That's an early part of my salvage operation. I have outside some citrus plants. 1 of them, or 2 of them, are lemons. They have had them for about 5 years, and apparently those 2 and the orange I have, they're capable of tolerating down to -5 Celsius. The bird when I bought them said so, but they just stand still if I left them outside. And we around this area we do get more than -5 Celsius on occasions in winter. So I don't take any risks. I bring them indoors, and the bonus for bringing them indoors is they are so relieved and pleased to be under cover with a bit of warmth that they reward you by starting to flower. flower buds appear, and that's the beginnings of fruit. So they have been brought in now. Bay tree, 2 bay trees, they've been taken into the unheated greenhouse. They'll be fine in there. They've stood 2 or 3 winters in there already. So things of that nature, I'm bringing in those not quite frost hardy enough, so they're under cover. Plants out in the garden that are too big to bring indoors, I have to leave them in situ, of course. So, and if they're not frost hardy also, at least they could succumb to frost. I'm thinking of plants like Verbena bonariensis, which sometimes the frost claims it, and the globe artichoke, which I have out there in the garden. It's not quite as hardy as it should be, so I tend to, the globe artichoke, simply earth it up, earth soil up over it, as you do earthing potatoes when they first appear in late spring, and I leave it like that, and it's quite comfortable, the globe artichoke, under that mound of soil. The frost doesn't affect it, and it survives. Any other plants like herbaceous perennials, the things like the Verbena bonariensis, for example, or any herbaceous perennials that are not frost hardy, one of the things I do is I get some straw and put it around them, and then weigh that down with some soil. Of course, fleece works as well. So that's things outdoors. And then I have to look at the greenhouse. What's happening in there? Well, I send some of the fuchsias in there, send some of the pelargoniums, as I said earlier, but they can just tolerate so much cold. So I have a sheet of fleece to drape over them when the time is right. If frost is forecast that evening, I drain the fleece over them, and it's a marvellous how well that protects them. If there's wind and frost and there's a plant keels over in the garden, say a perennial plant which is top heavy, and say a shrub, then as quickly as you can, dig a hole on the side where the roots have been loosened, get a stake in there, supporting stake, drive it in, ease the plant back up into position, tie it to the stake, water well, backfill, and with a bit of luck and the wind in the right direction, it should do well and live through the winter.
Wallington is one of Northumberland's most majestic places, and Lancelot Capability Brown, the local boy and gardener who made good, went to school next door at Cambo and had a hand in some of the landscaping of the estate. He left Northumberland in 1739 and designed gardens for people including the King and 6 Prime Ministers. Wallington's now in the caring hands of the National Trust, and Steve Lowe from the Northumberland Rivers Trust went along to meet Paul Hewitt, the countryside manager at Wallington, to find out more about how the estate is evolving and adapting to change.
Well, it's a lovely morning here, up on the Wallington Estate, up near Roughbury Crags. Beautiful morning, isn't it, Paul?
Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah. Paul, you work for the National Trust. What's your job?
I do, role? Yeah. I've got the lovely job of being the countryside manager here at Wallington.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and we've been looking at, you've got a 50-year vision up here, which, I think is really quite ambitious. So do you want to just fill in a little bit of detail to that, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, it's a project we've been looking at over the last couple of years, really. I mean, the Trust is really pushing in a direction where we want to do our bit for nature conservation. And Wallington itself is 20 square miles. It's a big old lump of land. 15,
huge, isn't it?
15 farms. So we've got the potential really to be able to work at a landscape scale where everything is stuck together, which is so vital for nature conservation.
Oh, absolutely.
So essentially what we've done is we've got a plan together where we've been talking to all our farm tenants over the last, like I say, couple of years, and we've come out with 4 main strands for it, really. So one element really is restoring lots of hedges across the estate. It was all design landscape in the 1770s, and there were lots of trees planted, and we're slowly losing all our own veteran trees, and they're sort of slowly going from the landscape. So it's putting the trees and hedgerows back. The other major thing we're doing is to look at water quality and flooding and slowing the flow.
Yeah.
Because all the water that lands here eventually goes through Morpeth.
Yeah, of course.
So we've got the entire upper catchment of the Wansbeck.
That's where the Rivers Trust has come in.
Exactly. So which I'm working with you and you and Pete. So we're doing that. So we're looking to protect it from diffuse pollution point of view. So maybe stopping cattle and sheep getting into the river. Also slowing the flow where we can. Yeah. So that's the two elements. The other one is that we're looking at woodlands. So we're looking to create more woodlands on the Wallington Estate, and also maybe convert quite a lot of the conifer plantations back into broadleaf woodland. Yeah, so it'll be a very different place in 50 years' time. It will be, and then the final one is looking at our moorland areas. So we've got lots of areas on the deep peat, so it's restoring and working with the tenants. To looking at maybe wetting those up. And the response from the tenants seems to have been relatively good. Yes, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's been positive. We've been talking to them over, like I say, over a number of years. I think they all realise this is the direction of travel for farming. So we're trying to work with them to try and second guess what sort of grants and subsidies and assistance there might be. But we're trying to put them down in the right direction of travel. Yeah, and I guess most people who might be listening to this think of National Trust in Wallington. They just think the whole. But obviously, you've mentioned this is 20 square miles. It's a huge opportunity, not just for the things we've talked about, but also for those people who are visitors as well. Absolutely, yeah. And we would, because I think most people that visit Wallington, they think of the Griffin Sedge on the front lawn, and maybe do the River Walk, but they don't realise that 7 miles north is all Wallington. So there's a few walks you can go on. There's the Wanney Line walk, there's a walk up at Green Lighton, but we are looking to see ways where we can get people more out in the wider estate as well in time. Yeah, so the Wilds of Wanney basically. Wilds of Wanney, yeah, fantastic. One of the things you mentioned to me as well, which I just thought was interesting, was the impact of ash dieback that you've seen when you've been doing some of your surveys. Yeah, it's really kicked in this last year, and it's really quite depressing. So we were asked to sort of do an assessment really, which went around in June to see how much was dying off, and there was an awful lot of trees were looking really sick. Now, we're not sure if it was all completely ash dieback or that, or a combination, like I was saying to you, of the really dry spring that we had. Because it has been incredibly dry. So we will look to see what we do next year, but it's not a very good prognosis. Generally, they reckon that 95% of all our ash are going to die eventually. And these are all diseases that are coming in from abroad again. In times of lockdown, I think people are starting to understand some of these things a little bit more, maybe. But the other thing about lockdown is you've got all this green open space, haven't we? This is a relief. We're out here today, and it's almost like silence apart from the odd car going past. Typically, the odd car goes past when you're doing an interview, but other than that, it's just wonderful, isn't it? Beautiful blue skies and woodland and all the moorland and everything around us. So fantastic. Yeah. Right. Well, I better let you go back to work. No doubt you've got a computer waiting for you. Yeah, a few emails to catch up on. Okay, mate. Thanks very much for that, Paul. Cheers. Bye. Ciao.
We chatted recently about spiders, so you probably know we're big fans of our 8-legged friends. If you're feeling a bit panicky at the thought of them, relax. Everything's fine. Here's Paul Hetherington, Director of Fundraising and Communications from BugLife, with reassurance and some amazing tales from the spidery web of life.
There are around 650 different species of spider in the United Kingdom, ranging from your tiny money spiders that you basically need a microscope to be able to see them, up to the cardinal spider, which can be up to 10 centimetres across from leg to leg. And the heaviest is the 4-spot orb weaver, which weighs an incredible 2.5 grams. But spiders come in so many different forms and shapes, and of course they're very closely related to scorpions, and even more so to harvestmen, which are often confused as spiders. The main difference being spiders have got 3 body parts, harvestmen have only 2. Spiders live in all different conditions. You get water spiders, you even get cloud living spiders. You get spiders that spin webs, and of course spiders use their webs for all kinds of different purposes. We always think of webs as something that's put up there to catch flies or other prey, but in reality it can be used for so many more things. A number of different spiders, particularly the smaller varieties, make a little parachute out of their web and then use the wind to carry them across quite large distances. They've even been found up as high as on weather balloons, where they've got caught by being picked up in a high thermal. So they travel around a long way using their webs. They also use them as sacks to put around to protect their young, carry things around, and of course to wrap their prey up in. So very, very versatile creatures. Now, of course, people have an irrational fear of spiders, and it's not. People always particularly think that spiders are going to bite them, but the reality is there are just 4 spiders in this country capable of biting through human skin. And of those 4, only one of them has any form of venom in it, the noble false widow spider, which first came over from the Canary Islands and is now well established in southern Britain. But these are not aggressive spiders. They will only bite if they feel threatened. So if you put your hand on top of one to crush it, by accident it might be, but to the spider it's a threat. It is possible you'll be bitten, but it's no more painful than being stung by a wasp or a bee. So it's not like we've got one of the black widow or similar really threatening venomous spiders you find in more tropical countries. So spiders, such wonderful, useful creatures. People are irrationally afraid of them, and yet they are so important to us. They catch flies and other bugs which otherwise will give us terrible diseases. It's at this time of year that people become very aware of spiders because they see them around about a lot more in the house and out in the garden. And why is that? Well, it's because it's mating time for spiders. So all the male spiders come out to put on their displays to try and attract female spiders so they can reproduce. And quite a lot of spiders have very intricate dancing regimes that they go through. If you ever get a chance, have a look on YouTube and look up the mating ritual of the peacock spider. It's far more exciting than anything you'd see on Strictly Come Dancing, I can assure you. The male spiders also often bring treats for the female spiders, little wrapped up presents. It might be a fly, and this is to entice the female and also to distract her so that at the end she is less likely to eat the male spider. Now, some males, of course, do cheat and they wrap a bit of dirt or something in their silk, which they bring over. And spiders' webs are incredibly strong. They can be stretched up to 1/3 as long as they already are without breaking. And, of course, they're incredibly sticky, which is what sticks flies and other insects to them. But not all spiders use webs for catching things. You have jumping spiders that jump, and they are said to have, outside of the octopus family, the best eyesight of any invertebrate, because they have to be able to see things moving to jump and catch it. And then you get hunting spiders and wolf spiders, which run around and chase down prey. And then, of course, there's the orb weavers who weave those incredible webs we'll see in our garden, which are so splendid on a dew-covered morning. The largest ever spider web was actually found in the United Kingdom. It was found on a sports field by a groundsman at a school, and it covered the entire sports field. You're looking at around about 5 hectares of spider's web, and it actually been created by a whole series of money spiders, but their webs all joined together and covered the entire field. And the rarest spider in the United Kingdom, probably the horrid ground weaver spider, which is only found on a couple of sites in Plymouth in the entire world. Other really rare ones include the rather nicely named distinguished jumping spider, which is only found at Swanscombe Marshes, a site on the Thretter Building, and across the River Thames at West Thurrock Marshes. And of course there is the beautiful ladybird spider found down on the Dorset Heaths. The male of that spider, when it comes to mating season, takes on a beautiful bright red body colour with little black spots on it, hence the name ladybird spider. And it really is quite a fabulous sight to see. So November is a good time to think about and talk about spiders. So enjoy and appreciate them. Thank you.
And you can find out more about BugLife at buglife.org.uk. And so, to the sounds of the Dawn Chorus at West Chevington, let's join Tom for some jobs for the week.
Here are the jobs I'll be busy with in the coming week. Whoever said that winter you put your tools away? It just doesn't happen in this garden. We're busy every single day, and one thing I make sure of, I walk around the garden to keep in touch with what's happening. That's so important, especially at this time when you're growing winter greens. the Brussels sprouts and the purple sprouting broccoli. They're zooming along well. Won't be long before we're tasting those, and they're under netting to guard them from the pigeons. I also have some spring cabbages, 2 tried and tested varieties from years ago, Flower of Spring and Durham Early, and they're about 3 weeks apart in sowing time, so the Flower of Spring will be ready first, but we'll not be harvesting those till about the February period, and then through March, April, they'll be going to the kitchen. Just lovely to have them there. They're really tough. They're safe under the net, and they're not worried about frost at all. A little bit of slug damage, but that's okay. We can take that in our stride. There are quite a few things flowering out there in the garden, and the message here is just enjoy them. The run of the mill, beautiful though, winter shrubs with some with their fragrance, Mahonia charity with those long golden racemes emanating from the centre of a stem, golden, yellow, fragrant flowers. It's busy flowering, and do you know, it's paid off deadheading the roses throughout the summer period, because the rose Chandos Beauty, which is the most magnificent fragrance, it has come up with some new shoots even as late as getting into early December. There are quite a few buds there, and they're breaking. Chandos Beauty, a pink rose, and people say to me, should I stop the rose flowering because it's winter now and it's going to be hit by the frost? No, let it flower, enjoy it. Frost will come soon enough. Just enjoy them while they're flowering. Cut the flowers if you wish, put them in a vase, and time will come when you can cut it back anyway at the end of the year. Don't worry about that. Also flowering at the moment is the Cosmea out in the border. It's one of those, it's supposed to be a half-hourly annual, raise it indoors under cover in the greenhouse, prick them out, or put them into trays, module trays, and plant them out, and they start flowering about July, still flowering now. And they stay there as long as they're flowering. Why not? Enjoy them. Turf laying is possible at the moment. If you want to start a new lawn, prepare the land well and buy some turf. It costs generally about £4 or something in that area for a square metre, and it's a quick way of making a lawn. Also, I've got some hills and hollows in the lawn, depressions. So if I cut the turf and slide it back, put some soil in, and replace the turf, I'm filling in a hollow that shouldn't be there anyway. That sort of thing, maintenance work. Get it done now. No frost around, of course, at the time you do it. I'm planting and moving plants around as if there were no tomorrow. Some that have been outgrown their space, allotted space in a mixed border, or some that just look out of place anyway. And this can be hardy perennials, herbaceous perennials. It can be a small bush fruit like blackcurrant or red currant or a gooseberry. They'll move and get them from A to B, and they'll just take off and give you fruit next year anyway. So that's been done at the moment. Any containers you've got lying around, if they've been filled with plants, especially near the house during the summer, why not, if you've nothing in them, don't leave them with bare earth, put 1 or 2 polyanthus or something of that nature in, or some bulbs. They'll come up. Even the green shoots appearing is better than just bare soil in a container, and you'll get a bit of joy from it. So that's happening at the moment. My holly trees, the variegated and the green-leaved hollies, they've been laden with berries as usual, but they're vanishing rapidly, simply because the blackbirds have been on the job. So now, before Christmas, get a few sprigs and put them into water up to the neck in water so the berries are just above water level, and save some for yourself for a little bit decoration indoors. Apart from that, enjoy your gardening.
You've been listening to Gardener Tom Pattinson, birder Tom Cadwallander from the British Trust for Ornithology, Steve Lowe from the Northumberland Rivers Trust and Naturally Northumbria, and Paul Hetherington from BugLife. and Paul Hewitt from the National Trust at Wallington near Morpeth. I'm Carl Steinson, and do check out our Twitter and Facebook page, The Nature Garden, and our website, The Nature Garden Notebook. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, enjoy your garden and nature. Bye for now.